Hello YouTube. It's been quite a while since I've made a video. My channel is called Forever Altered, and I decided to start it because I discovered that I was in a relationship with a narcissist. And if you have ever been in a relationship with a narcissist, and I'm sure that you have or you wouldn't be here searching, you can understand why I would say that the experience has left me forever altered. It's been months since I've made a video, and I apologize for that. I've been very busy with work, just trying to survive, I guess. And but my situation hasn't changed much. The last video I made, I think I told you that I am actually living in a little apartment that sits behind my house. That is my office. I'm in here now. Was a small apartment that I used to rent, and so it's got a kitchen and a bathroom and a bedroom and a living room, and it has 2 bedrooms actually, and one of them is my office space. I started making it more livable, and then in February of this year, which I think may have been around the last time I made a video, after I had put spyware on my Narc's phone and discovered that he had been cheating with numerous people through the entire relationship, and one of them was actually a long-term relationship or situation. I started staying back here. I basically abandoned my own house just to get some distance. And I kind of wanted to talk about how that's working and give you maybe some tips or things that you can use to possibly improve your life if you are also one of those people who is still in a relationship with a narc. So I kind of wrote some things, so I may be reading at times, but I'll interject my thoughts. So 2 of the things that I have sort of carved out of this lesson of living back here but still being in a relationship, I've asked my narc to leave numerous times. We have a daughter together. She is 4.5, and it's strange for me to say he's a good dad, but for the most part, he is a good dad. It's the one thing I question, my little, quote, diagnosis. Narcissists rarely actually get a diagnosis. I'm not a therapist, but I did work in mental health for almost 10 years, so, and I did assist with the doctors who were diagnosing, so I don't feel like I'm way off in left field in saying that if a therapist took a serious look at my daughter's father and knew all of this situation and knew the truth of his thought processes and actions and reactions and so forth, he would be diagnosed as on the spectrum of narcissist personality disorder. Anyway, narcissists, they destroy the people that they love. They destroy the people that love them. Let me rephrase that. I don't think they're capable of love. At least not the kind of love that a normal, empathetic person experiences. But if you love a narc, guaranteed they're out to destroy you. Piece by piece, bite by bite, they will consume you. They strip away your confidence, your self-esteem, your happiness, your financial security. It's like they're like a tornado. They leave destruction in their path, and then they casually move on to a new area with fresh trees and buildings that they can come in and rip apart. They seek supply. Some people call it fuel. it's still the same thing. It's whatever they take from people that are in their lives. Your resources, they believe they're there for them, and they value you or love you based on what you give them. Their love is very transient, so to speak, because they lack object constancy. So they can love you or feel that they love you in 1 minute, and then if you do something that angers them, they hate you. And there's no in between. And it's quite interesting how that works. If you experience it, you know what I mean. It's devastating to, especially because it's not like it takes a lot to anger a narcissist. It can be the most simple thing, deviating from your normal plan. I know in my life I have always had the same underlying theme with him, and that is when I go to work, and I am a small business owner, and so I work for myself. So I can dictate my schedule to some level, but I still have huge responsibilities over my shoulders, and I often have trouble sleeping, and I get up in early morning, but I'm tired by early in the evening. But that's how I am, and that's how I survive. But to him, he says, "Who am I getting up for?" And tries to cast doubt on my daily activities on a regular basis. Narcs are masters at manipulation. They lie about everything. They cheat, and because to them it's not cheating. To them it is just cultivating their new supply sources, and they need that to survive. And my narc has said to me in numerous conversations or rage sessions, when they really speak their mind, that I had that girl because you kicked me out, or you tried to kick me out. He's refused to leave. I've left several times. You left and you went to the apartment and stayed, and so I didn't know what was going on, so I had to get this girl. And just recently I actually discovered another phone number that I had missed back in February, and I reached out to this person, tracked her down, and discovered that he actually had two that I know of girls on the side. This girl he had for 3 years. The other one he had for 4. He's been in my life for 5.5 years now. So you can see that he didn't just have the 1 and 2 night stands around this time. He actually also had cultivated some great sources for himself. But for some reason, he never took the jump and left, which I had told him many times to leave, and he wouldn't do it. And they justify everything that they do by saying that you caused it. So your actions, at least your perceived actions that they're seeing, but they're not true. They're accusing you of this. It doesn't really matter. It's going to be your fault somehow. They don't argue with you. They rage on you. They confuse and they cloud the issue to the point that you forget what your point even was. When you're upset about something and you want to discuss something, that never happens. You begin by trying to discuss something, and quickly they take over the conversation. No matter how hard you try to keep it on track, they, instead of saying, "Yes, you're right, I did that," they'll bring up something, well, but you did this 5 years ago. My situation is such that he constantly brings up the fact that as I was ending the relationship I was in before him, I had a few weeks where I wasn't sure I wanted to end that relationship, and where I still talked to that person after I met my current person. We weren't in a relationship. We just met and were talking, but he keeps going back to that time and saying, "I cheated." Well, I didn't cheat. I wasn't with you. Just because I was introduced to you doesn't mean I was with you. It's odd how he can have all these multiple layers of relationships, but I can't even have a conversation with a person with two people at the same time, over the course of 2 weeks, and it's held against me for all of this time. So if they do something wrong, they're gonna look at you and target you, and it's your fault. They're gonna project the blame on you. They're gonna project their ugliness inside their soul onto you. That's how I knew that he was cheating. I hate to even say cheating, because it's the most fake relationship you could ever be in if you're in a relationship with a narc. But he constantly says, I'm cheating. I work constantly, and I am, I'm 52 years old. I don't run around and play those kind of games, but he talks about me like I do, because that's what his ugly soul looks like. He is the cheater. He is the liar. And so he automatically thinks that everyone around him is doing it. And he can't handle that image of himself. So he portrays that onto those closest to him. He says, ironically, he said the same things about the women that I flushed out that he was seeing. And I have had numerous conversations with them. And there's a third one. Well, there's one from his past that I'm actually trying to get a hold of, because I think that would shed a lot of truth to his lies from his past that I think I need to know. Of course, that's one of the traits he hates most about me, and that is that I keep digging to try to find the truth. I'm not 100% sure why, except I feel like truth is knowledge, and I'll always seek out the truth over lies in any situation. So anyway, sometimes the narc will move on easily. Sometimes, they go in and out of people's lives based on what they can give them. So sometimes they just go and move on. And other times they stick like glue. And so that is the reason why some of us stay. We aren't, we're staying because we can't seem to rid ourselves safely from the narc. Mine has made numerous threats to blame his illegal activities on me. He, to the point I even went to a lawyer and basically just said all of what I knew about him. And that was in February also, when I decided to move and change my address. So they plan their smear campaign all the time. While smiling in your face, they're keeping track of anything and everything that they could do to hurt you. And they twist and convolute everything. So, a simple situation can become very twisted and very ugly because of their lies that they inject into it. And they're good information gatherers, but they're bad at repeating truth. That what they say about a situation is probably 90% lies most of the time. I'm amazed at how well my narc kept up with all the lies that I have revealed with these other two women, and comparing stories about one of them. I have a dog, and one of them actually gave him the dog. So the dog is this other woman's dog, which I just found out about. I had even told him back then. I thought that's what was going on, and he told me I was crazy and whatnot. And at one point he was going to bring me a cat. Well, now I've discovered that the cat was from one of the other women. A couch we had came from one of them. It's mind-boggling. Some stories that happened that he's told them different stories or bits and pieces, and so I'm just trying to gather everything for whatever reason, I don't know. Anyway, sometimes we just can't get out. So sometimes we find ourselves in the situation, and for whatever reason we can't get out. We can't explain that to anyone. People will say, and I've had people say this to me, you're making excuses, you need to just go. Well, no one can judge your situation. No one can judge your specific situation, and you could never explain it, unless you were in it. You could never verbalize the reasons why you think you need to stay. My situation is such that I think that I live in a small town, and I already know the threats he's made and the smear campaign comments that he's made, that he will unleash on me if I make him leave, which means to him if I take his daughter, because that's the only person he cares about. But in my case, I feel like as if one of these days something's going to happen outside of my house while he's away at night doing whatever it is he does, and it's going to take care of the situation for me, and it will be much less painful. And although he will still hate me at that point because he has to have someone to hate, maybe he won't be so vengeful against me, because I do know his capabilities of vindictiveness and carrying grudges, and it is phenomenal to what degree he will go. When I hear him talk about situations, and everyone's always wronged him, and I hear him talk about that, and he carries grudges forever. And so I don't want to be always looking over my shoulder. I don't know if I kind of think that would be worse than trying to maintain this distance in this situation and make the best of it. And everybody has to make that decision for themselves, but some people find themselves in that type of a situation. So I choose to wait for a break that might be less devastating. And for me, that's the answer at this point in time, and that could change at any time. I mean, if the risk goes up of personal safety, then, there's a good chance that I will change that, and I would then be willing to take whatever fallout happens from exposing him and him trying to pull me down with him. Sometimes we just have to learn to coexist with them as best we can. And if this is you, then I'm sure you've noticed that there is a lot of advice out there for getting out, for planning your escape, healing after the abuse, but there's little available about surviving while you're still in the relationship. So each person's journey is different and unique, and sometimes no amount of explanation to others can ever sum up the why behind your choice to stay. Fear can be a big motivator. Financial position can be one. Sometimes staying, although it's terrible, it might be safer than leaving. And yes, that can be true. When you leave and their rage is unleashed on you, and you don't know where they're at, and you can't predict their behavior, it can be scary. So you might feel there's a point in time in which everything's going to come together, and you can see a light at the end of the tunnel, and you can make your choice to leave then, or the universe is going to step in and take care of it for you. So planning to survive until you get to that point is the reason why I started this channel. And, even though I've been busy and haven't made a video in several months, I would hope that I would still invest in this even after I figure out how to end the situation I'm in, because there's always going to be people like me. There will always be people who are, trying to pull themselves up by the bootstrap and figure out what's going on. And with the mental abuse that a narcissist inflicts on you, and the crazy making. I mean, they say crazy making. It is beyond belief crazy making, to where you don't know up from down. So it really becomes hard to make good decisions. And so you can develop some strategies that can help you to minimize the abuse, or at least minimize the effect of it on your mental state, while you're still in the process of figuring out how to go, or how you're going to handle your exit. So I want to talk about 2 strategies today. Sorry for making all that so long. That can help you improve your quality of life while you're still in this relationship. And they are physical distance and emotional distance. You would have those if you left. Obviously, you would achieve both of those in their ultimate form. So we are not able to achieve them in their ultimate form while we're still in the relationship, but we can look at those 2 concepts on a smaller scale, and we can achieve some physical distance and certainly some emotional distance. You might not be able to achieve it in its entirety, but it is still there for you on a smaller scale. So you know your abuser well enough to know the signs of an impending rage. You can feel it. You can feel it coming. You know when it feels like they're just looking for a fight. And I know for a fact I've walked on eggshells a lot, and I think that's a form of distance that caters to the narcissist. You just walk on eggshells. It makes their life more bearable, of course, but it makes you miserable. What if you just removed yourself on an event-by-event basis? What if that was your goal? So you just quietly try to give yourself physical distance however you can, on an event-by-event basis, a rage-by-rage, whatever your narc chooses to unleash on you. Mine has a hair-trigger temper. Everything can be going just fine, and then all of a sudden one thing is said or one look is given, or he thinks he perceives a look, and he explodes. And so if you can, set up an area where you enjoy being, obviously prior to being in the situation, where you can feel some peace. Give yourself some space, and your situation will dictate what that is. If it could be a room, or however you feel safely that you can give yourself a distance. Can you get up? Can you walk away when he starts or she starts to rage or rant? Can you go and get in the car and go for a drive? Can you say, I need 5 minutes, and go walk outside if you can't go for a drive? Will he allow you that distance? Choose the greatest physical distance you can achieve without jeopardizing your safety. But my narc, oddly enough, he's very, very against physical abuse because his father physically abused his mother, but he does not see verbal abuse as abuse. And so he can sit and scream at you and call you names, but he isn't the type to hit. He palmed me in the face one time, and he threw a cup at me one time that hit me in the lip. But he, in general, isn't. It's not. I don't know if he could snap one day and whatever, but he. I don't have that fear. Like I can get up in most cases and leave the room. He may follow me into the room. I can also leave the house. Now, we do have a problem with our daughter, and if I'm trying to minimize or leave the house, I may not be able to, because if he puts up a fight and says, you can go, but she can't, I will not leave. So those are all things you have to consider, but choose the greatest physical distance you can possibly achieve at that point in time. And base it on, your abuser and the knowledge you have on them. But I will say this, your choice will likely be acute to the severity of the situation. If you're physically not allowed to leave, then your situation and your personal safety are in serious jeopardy, and you need to be planning your escape sooner rather than later. If you can't drive away or walk away or go into a different room to get away, then and this is this is normal. You're expected to sit there and listen to it and participate no matter what. Then you definitely have major safety issues. So you need to consider that and get your plan of escape as quickly as possible. But in the meantime, try to physically distance yourself as much as possible. When you can't physically distance yourself, you can emotionally distance yourself. And I practice this a lot, and I think it has made an improvement. In the beginnings of this, quote, relationship, he was extremely verbally abusive. And truthfully, he has dropped a lot of that, but it does still creep in. It's second nature to him to annihilate his victim, at any cost. And so in the beginning, he could push every button by insulting me and hurting me. And I was, when I met him, I was a pretty confident person, had been through a lot. My son was killed in a car wreck. I had been through a lot of trauma. My nephew was killed also in a car wreck a year before my son. I had a grandson who died 12 days after he was born. This all happened within 3 years. And my marriage didn't make it as a result of all the grief and grieving differently. So I was in a rough spot that way, but I was a confident person, and I had been loved in my marriage and loved by many in different ways. And so I definitely knew what it was like to feel loved. And when you're in a relationship with a narcissist, the one thing you know for sure, you cannot deny. If you are denying this to be your reality, then you need to really take a close look at yourself in the mirror and be honest with yourself. They do not love you. They cannot possibly love you if they do what they do to you. There's just no way. No way. Would you do that to someone you love? So, why allow emotional closeness then with someone who is going to just abuse that and just use it against you, however they can? So, emotional distance is like setting up a perimeter before the attack. It's going into the foxhole or behind the sandbags and staying there until it's safe to come out again. It's retreating inside your head, but leaving behind an emotionless blank stare. It's sitting inside your shell and listening to the arrows ping as they hit your armor. It takes practice, and it takes tremendous self-reserve. It also requires that you completely embrace the fact that there's probably no truth or substance behind what your abuser is saying to you, and that you will never, ever impact them to change, no matter what you do, what you say, what you think, or what you feel. So you need to resign yourself to knowing that you will never achieve your goal of proving yourself, shedding light on the truth, or above all, you're never going to save them. Never, never going to save them from themselves. You cannot save them from mental illness. You cannot change them. You also have to realize that they make choices, and just like you make choices, and you can't change that in a person. You need to understand that you are a punching bag for all their junk, for all their past hurts, all their indiscretions, all the times they feel they were taken advantage of, everything that they've carried with them. You are the punching bag. Whatever it was that made them into the abusive and hateful person that they are, but that you are not the cause of it, nor can you fix it, but most importantly, you don't deserve it. There is no truth to what they say in their fits of rage, in their name-calling, and their judgmental attitudes, and their critiquing every move you make. There is no truth or substance to what they're saying to you, so you need to let it roll off your back. That is emotional distance. The good thing about it, I will say, in practicing it, because it is so hard, and it's so hard to keep your mouth shut when you hear complete lies or you hear convoluted truths, or you see philosophies that make no sense and you want to verbalize your thoughts. It's really hard to sit there and be quiet. But I will say this, you can, if you slip, you can always retreat back into the foxhole. Sometimes I do that. Sometimes I get to where what he's saying is so unbelievable, I just can't keep my mouth shut. And so I, lash out and say a few words, and I don't get too many words in, but I try. And then I think this is pointless. So emotional distance is just keep removing yourself from the emotional trauma that you're experiencing by trying to rationalize with someone who is irrational. Keeping your mouth shut, even though sometimes it seems like it'll go on for another 45 minutes, is still better than going on for another 3 hours, because you're just giving them more fuel. You're giving them more fuel to, take some more hate and rage out on you and tell you why you're wrong. And, it gets you nowhere, but more hurt. So physical and emotional distance on an event by event basis, meaning on a situation by situation, here it comes, I can tell they just are looking for a fight, and I'm going to get ready. I need to point out that the ultimate goal is to always get away, get away from someone that's abusing you. And no matter how much these strategies, or any strategy that you could learn from any video or any self-help group or any other place that you can find support, they're still, they may improve your life, but they're still exhausting. It's still exhausting to be with a narcissist or an abuser of any kind. So your ultimate goal should be not to stay 1 minute longer than you absolutely have to. And if it becomes an issue of personal safety, then you need to get out as soon as possible. You need to get out immediately. So with all that said, the last thing I want to say to you is record. Document. Do it because they're doing it to you. They're definitely keeping tabs on everything that they can do to cause you grief and pain down the road when you finally throw in the towel and say, this is it, I've had enough. And however you choose to leave, they're storing up ammunition. So, and I'm not suggesting you do that. You record for that purpose. I'm suggesting you record because I started recording back, years ago. In fact, the reason why I started was because literally when he would tell me that, like, his recollection of every argument was always that, well, you came at me, so I got mad. And I'm not that, I don't have that kind of nature. So I didn't believe it, but yet I started to believe that maybe it was me. Maybe I didn't realize how I was coming off. So I started recording the conversations just to play them back when I was alone to see if it was me, to be able to clarify that, because I wanted to work it out. I wanted to make a change. If that wasn't what was necessary, then I was willing to do it, and I would be willing to admit if I did something wrong and try to change. So I started recording, and I quickly discovered that it wasn't me at all. Like, I could hear the tone in his voice, and I could hear my voice, and I could hear how, like I'm talking right now, like I could hear even how I would try to calm him down or bring him back a notch. And, but like, for instance, when he would call me names and I would say, stop, I would tell him, stop calling me names. And that would send him even worse into a rage because I was telling him what to do. And it's like, you can't even take the simplest request from a person that you stop abusing them without turning it into another reason to rage on them. And, so I have, I don't even know how many, a couple hundred audio recordings of his rages. And that's sad, isn't it? Boy, that's sad. They're not all rages. Sometimes they're just his illogical thinking. But at any case, if the first sign of the tension in the air, and I'll hit the record button on my phone, and usually I can catch within the first, 30 seconds. So I can easily catch the beginning of it to know if it was me or not, I guess. But I'm way past that point now. But it's very revealing. And then you listen back and you'll hear them admit things like, I just recently discovered the second long-term relationship that he's had, and I actually talked with her extensively, and she's a very sweet girl, and she just had a baby, and she hasn't seen my Narc in 2 years, but the first 3 years we were together, she was seeing him also. And she said she always had a feeling that he was either married or with someone, because he would only come at night, and he, was secretive about everything and never spent the night and all these things. But when I questioned him about it, he, of course, started raging and talking about both of the girls that he had these relationships with. And he said, you kept leaving. And so I picked these 2 girls out that had a house and no boyfriend, and I kept them there in case I needed somewhere to go. And if that's not a classic narcissistic statement, I don't know what is. So those of us who are in relationships with narcissists, we are not humans to them. We are fuel. We are literally sources of supply. So, I can't promise you that I'm going to make videos quicker or more often. I can try, but I can't make that promise because I just don't know what the future is going to be like. But I will try to, at least try to get on once a month or so. I really, really like reading the comments, and I've forged some friendships on here with some of you, and I value those friendships and being a support system for each other. That was one of my main goals. So when you make comments, and if you can, if you find me on Facebook or anything, I would happily and willingly reach out to you to help you and be support any way I could. So comments below, subscribe to my channel, and many blessings to you for a narc-free life in the future. Take care.